I titled this video "The Weirdest and Possibly Worst Shotgun I Own." The Kel Tec KSG is not a new firearm. It's been out for quite a few years. However, I only recently got one. And this particular one, I did buy it quote unquote used, but as far as I could tell, it had never been fired when I got it. And as you go through this video, you'll understand why. However, this is a pretty weird shotgun, and I think this was one of the pioneer shotguns that had multiple magazine tubes and a very high round count in a bullpup type configuration. I'm not saying it's the first, but it was one that's really a pioneering type firearm. Now, Kel Tec, and this one included, they're not really always the most ergonomic firearms to shoot, and they're not always the highest quality firearms either, but they're very innovative and they have a lot of cool features. So this particular one, because I got it used, you never really know the history of this thing. And I thought it was really cool because, again, you have two different magazine tubes that you can load different rounds in each one if you choose to, and you basically flip that lever back and forth to select what you're putting in there. And these are dummy rounds, so don't get too excited about me loading this. But you can basically flip that lever in one direction and load one tube, and then flip it in the other direction and load the other tube. And the nice thing about this, Kel Tec did design in the ability to unload the magazines very easily. Again, that's something that I think is very important on a shotgun, to be able to unload the magazine tube as well as load it. So they have these little levers. You just basically flip the lever in the opposite direction of the tube you want to unload, pull up on that little knurled lever, and you'll take the rounds right out of the magazine. So pretty easy to load and unload. And then the action to rack this, it works a lot like an Ithaca Model 37. It is a bottom feed, bottom eject shotgun. So it's an ambidextrous shotgun when you're using it. And you can see that lifter and ejector is kind of all one pair of ears that load the round into the chamber and then also drop it out. Now right here you can see that when you pull the slide back, you take a round out of the magazine, drop it in the chamber, and then close the magazine. When you open that chamber again, it will eject the spent shell out the bottom of the gun. When I first got this thing, I took it out to the range and I immediately started having issues with it. So here you can see me loading the magazine tubes, and this does hold 7 2 3/4 inch shells in each one of the magazine tubes. Loading it is not that difficult. It's not as intuitive as a standard pump action shotgun would be, because the bottom of this thing, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. It's not extremely difficult though. So once I loaded up my 14 rounds I set out to try shooting this thing, and I was immediately disappointed. So I started looking at this thing at the range, and I really could not tell what was going on. After a couple of tries of pumping the action forward and backward, what I did determine was that the action was not fully closing. So what ended up happening was the extractor was not going over the rim of the shotgun shell. It was smashing into the rim, and it was causing a misfeed. And basically what I ended up having to do was unload both magazine tubes completely and kind of fumble to get the round that was in the chamber out by sliding it through those ears, basically opening the lifter ears up to get it through the bottom of the gun. And after about 10 minutes, I finally gave up. It was basically a quality control issue that caused the problem. And after I went to the range, what I realized was, again, that it was not fully closing the bolt. It was not allowing that extractor to go over the rim. But it wasn't just an ammo problem, it was actually a flaw in the gun. So when I started looking into this deeper, I took the entire thing apart, and it turns out the bolt carrier, where the flat piece is welded on, the arms were actually bent. And I took it down into my basement and put it in a vise and was able to straighten them out and get it working properly again. So it does function properly now, but I've not taken it back out to the range yet. And if there's one thing you have to know about Kel Tec firearms, every one that I've owned, you have to add a whole bunch of stuff onto it before you shoot it to make it really comfortable to shoot. When I originally took this to the range, I had a red dot on top of it, but I needed that for another firearm, so I ended up getting some M-Bus backup sights. And I originally had an angled foregrip on it, but it was really hurting my hand to rack the slide. So I ended up getting this rail vertical grip. I put a cheek pad on it because if there's anything I don't like, it's smashing my cheek on the receiver. I put a nice cushiony butt pad on it. And I also bought a rubber plug for the grip, which allows you to put things in there like an extra battery for your red dot and an Allen wrench to be able to adjust things. So just a few things I either found online or bought at Cabela's to make this gun better to shoot. So this definitely is the weirdest shotgun that I own. It may be the worst. However, I really think that's not fair. I will give this thing a good chance to work properly when I take it back out to the range, now that I know that it loads and feeds ammo correctly. So it is a pretty cool gun. I've said it before. I love Kel Tec for their innovation and the cool things that they sell. So I think this one will work fine now, and I do think I'm going to keep it. But I guess time will tell once I get it back out to the range and shoot it. So thanks again for watching this video, the weirdest gun and maybe the worst gun I own. I think it's still a cool gun. I still think it's a viable option for self-defense. Potentially gives you the flexibility to have a lot of different rounds in the magazines, and it's a bullpup, so it's a very short package. And the trigger on this one isn't even that bad. So thanks again for watching. Have a great day. God bless America. Support your 2A rights. Get out there and shoot. And you remember, if someone asks you to give up some of your freedom for the greater good, remind them that freedom is always the greater good.